Black Earth offers a full suite of humic solutions, from high-purity granules to powder, liquid, and soluble formulations, all powered by pure Humulite. Trusted by growers worldwide from one of the world's rarest Humulite reserves. Grow stronger with the power of Black Earth Humulite. Learn more from Mind to Market by visiting blackearth.com.
I'm Sean Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now.
Hello and welcome to RealAg on the Weekend. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith. We've got a great lineup for you today. You're going to hear from Greg Cherewyk. He's president of Pulse Canada. We're going to talk about India and China and the importance of those markets and how Canada is, or frankly is not, dealing with tariffs. We're also going to hear from Jack Payne of South Country Co-op about fall weed control, specifically for canola fields. We'll also hear from Darcy Pawlik. He's the new chair of Agriculture in the Classroom Canada. He's going to explain all about the new direction for that organization. We've also got a product spotlight with MMP's Eric Olson, so stick around for that as well. Let's hop to it. Here's Jack Payne and Amber Bell talking about why fall weed control can be just so important for those canola fields.
Amber, today is a beautiful day. It's 23 degrees, beautiful growing day. What's going to be growing? Well, the canola is coming off. The cereal crops are coming off. But what I've been hearing from a lot of people in southern Alberta too, where basically harvest has been, much further along, or even parts of Peace River country where it's farther along, they've taken their crop off. And what are they finding underneath? Lots of fall weeds, lots of winter annuals, stinkweed, shepherd's purse, flaxweed, narrow-leaved hawksbeard, storksbill. So with all of the moisture that we've had in the July and August monsoons, that moisture is still here. So you got warm temperatures, those winter annuals are kicking into high gear.
Right. And what about volunteer cereals? Is that an issue right now? Yes.
This past summer, we had some issues in southern Alberta with wheat streak mosaic. And if you think back a year ago, we had a fall somewhat similar to this. We had a very open, warm fall that extended way into October. And besides winter annual broadleaf weeds, cereals, volunteer cereals will start growing again on those barley crops or wheat crops or whatever. And when they start growing again, what's happening is you're creating and leaving what we call a green bridge. Because normally what happens is middle of September to the end of September, it's supposed to be dry, everything's supposed to be browned off, there's nothing green. And any of the aphids or the wheat curl mites that are vectors for these diseases, because there's no green material, they die. So you got a good 2-week gap where nothing, where they're gone basically. What we're going to have now is, and you drive around, you see a lot of green growth in some of these crops and these cereal crops. That's going to provide a habitat for the wheat curl mite or some of these aphids to overwinter, and that extends them then into next growing season, and that's where you can have infections of some of these viral pathogens going into your cereals starting next spring. So there is no way to manage wheat streak mosaic. There's nothing that you can apply in crop for it. What you need to do is either consider your rotation or cut off that green bridge, which would be get out there, get some glyphosate on there, and burn off that green growth.
It's interesting because we often think about the weeds, you think about, okay, they might be stealing moisture, they might be taking minerals and things that the plants need, but we don't often think about how they impact the pests.
Exactly. So I think back to my old days of teaching when I was here at Olds College. In our pest management course, we would say good weed control often leads to good disease control. So no different than, for example, clubroot. Stinkweed, flaxweed, any of those Brassicaceae weeds are also hosts for clubroot. So again, by doing a good job of cleaning up those weeds, you are removing alternate hosts for some of those disease pathogens.
Let's talk ROI. How much of an impact can it make to growers if they don't go and control those weeds in the fall?
Okay, so when you're looking at our winter annuals, for example, like narrow-leaved hawksbeard and storksbill, I am going to talk about two of the tough ones. They are really somewhat tough to control in the spring. And, if you've got a rosette, a fall rosette that is about that big around, kind of like a softball or a tennis ball, it's going to overwinter in that state. It's going to be a lot harder to control it next spring because the bigger the weed, the harder it is to control. It's much easier to control any weed when it's small. So the other aspect is come next spring, that stork's bill, that narrowleaf hawksbeard, it's already got a well-established root system. It's already sucking water and nutrients out of the ground. It's much more competitive than the spring planted crops. So again, if you can get ahead of the game, knock those weeds out of the system in the fall, they're gone. It just makes spring a whole lot easier. Makes probably your management decisions a whole lot easier because now you don't have to fight those tough to kill weeds.
Would you say that you can get away without doing a pre-seed burn-off then in the spring if you've done one in the fall?
That's a tough question. I'll never say never, but if you do a good job in the fall, you're probably going to be that situation where you're going to look in the spring and say, do I really need to do anything? Because I've already done it. But if you, like I say, the conditions we've got right now, I'm going to say for the next 2 weeks to 3 weeks, if it's days like this, we're going to have some horrendous weed growth occurring in these fields. And you know what? The other thing is, this is great weather for spraying. I know it gets to be a little bit of a logistics thing for growers because they're still trying to get harvest done, and it's been a busy season, and now we're talking about, we're going to go back into the spray season again, back in the sprayer, because I've just it seems like I just got out of that thing. But you know what? If you do all that work up front, come spring, makes a lot of your decisions a whole lot easier too. Yeah.
You mentioned glyphosate. Are there other options for growers?
Oh my gosh, if you were to look at fall herbicide options, there's probably 15, 16, 18 different options that you can look at. I think the biggest thing I would suggest to people is think about your crop plan. Okay, so for example, if this is a canola field, what's it going to go into next year? Well, it's not going to be going into canola, so what's it going to go into? Is it going to go into a cereal? If I've got some significant weed growth that I have to deal with, select then a product that will have no restrictions, let's say for next spring, for either cereals or pulses, because then that allows you the flexibility to grow a cereal or grow a pulse on that. There are some products that are quite specific in terms of recropping restrictions, and so for example, some of them you can only go cereals after you have applied the product. So you're kind of pigeonholed into, I'm going to have to go with, with a wheat or a barley or something like that. I don't have the flexibility of going, into a pulse or an oilseed kind of thing. So that's the other aspect, I guess, of this whole thing is thinking about next spring. You're already thinking about next spring now. We're just putting this crop to bed, but we need to be thinking about what's going to go on this field next year.
Right.
And setting yourself up for, that. The other aspect about this time of year is really a chance to reflect. Because when you're on the combine and you're going through and you're going, okay, so how did this crop turn out? Is it a monster? Is it so-so? What are we looking at? Did I make the right decision? Is this the right variety? Did this turn out for me? Was my weed control strategy there? Because again, no better way to assess your weed control program than when you're on the combine and you're taking that crop off. It's a good time to reflect on your decisions that you made this year and then say, what would I have done different?
Right. Yeah. That's good to know. And any words of encouragement?
Well, I would say words of encouragement are the summer and fall monsoons have been a blessing. I mean, for some of the crops, I mean, we had some fields, areas that we were wondering what we were going to end up with, and we've got some surprising yields coming off of these areas and off of these fields. So we've got moisture in the ground, and as the late Les Henry would say, stored soil water is like money in the bank.
Oh, indeed it is, especially if a dry year ends up happening. Okay, we have to take a quick break. I will be back, though, with my conversation with Greg Cherewyk talking about pulse movement into India and into China, how impactful that 100% tariff on Canadian peas has been to China. We'll talk about that right after this quick break.
AgriTrade Equipment Expo, November 5th to 7th at Westerner Park in Red Deer. Discover the latest ag innovations, equipment, and technology. Get your tickets now at agra-trade.com.
If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by Mazik Seeds and Lalamon Plant Care.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Welcome back to RealAg on the Weekend. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and we go now to a conversation with Greg Cherewyk. He's president of Pulse Canada, and I spoke with him about the importance of not just India's market for Canada, but also China's.
So since 2024, we've shipped over 1.4 or 1.3 billion dollars worth of yellow peas and lentils. So India has been very much open for business for Canada. That's been very important, of course, because as you know, China imposed a 100% duty on Canadian yellow peas in March of this year. So for India to be back in business and to be importing Canadian yellow peas in particular, as well as lentils, has been very important to the Canadian pulse industry. So tariffs have been manageable. They've allowed for trade, and we've done a significant volume into India over the course of the last year.
So it's perhaps not talked about as much because so much focus is on canola. But as you mentioned, China did impose a tariff on Canadian peas as well. Maybe this is the other way around, but let's start then on the China file. And then I do want to talk about, sort of the news on the India side. But how does China fit into this? Because I think when we think pulses, we tend to think India as our market. And as you outlined, it has been very important and product has been moving. How important is China to Canadian pulse products?
Well, China's been incredibly important for Canadian pulses and yellow peas specifically. So, over the last 5 years, China has been the world's largest importer of yellow peas. It's taken over 10 million tons. And for Canada, over the last 5 years, we've exported $3.7 billion worth of yellow peas to China. That averages over 700 million a year. It was a very significant market for us. The loss of that market has been, it's been really hard on the Canadian pulse industry. Specifically, farmers have seen a price of yellow peas drop 43%, 50% decline in green pea prices since since China imposed the penalties the tariffs in March. So it's been incredibly impactful in terms of, returns to farmers. And, when you take India and China combined and just look at yellow peas, that's 81% of our market.
Wow.
So it's an incredibly, China's incredibly important, but it also puts an incredible amount of pressure on, the Canadian pulse industry to not only move product into India, but to also find diversified and alternative markets for yellow peas in particular.
Now, China is one that, obviously in recent memory, it's been very impactful as far as taking a lot of product. Is that a relatively new thing, or has China been a consistent buyer of Canadian peas?
Well, I like to tell stories. So, when I first started working on the Pulse file, it was 1999. And we worked on a paper that was designed to kind of outline how the Canadian pulse industry could start to make inroads into China. And what we were trying to achieve first was tariff parity with things like corn and soy so that we could, expand the market in China into feed as well. And in those days, we were talking probably between 20 and 50,000 tons of product moving into the market, all moving in containerized. That market developed incrementally and then very quickly over the years to go from that 50,000 ton market to over 2 million tons at its peak. So incredibly important. It is a market that we've developed over the course of 30 years. And I think that's a really important point, because you're going to hear quite often from politicians and from government officials that Canada needs to diversify, right? And no one would argue with that. It's been a major priority for our industry and for our organization, is to focus on diversification of markets for Canadian pulses. But, when you look at the exercise that we've been through in China, you'll understand that it's taken us 25 years to create this market with this amount of demand. There's been a lot of work done by farmers over the years, a lot of work done by the trade over the years to create those opportunities, and it's paid off. So that market is really a market that started by using peas for their starch to make this thing called a vermicelli noodle. Mm-hmm. It evolved into a market for not only the starch, but for the protein. So they fractionate and create pea protein isolate there. And of course, there's peas going into food products, into feed, both swine as well as pigeon feed, et cetera. So it's been an important and diversified market within for our industry. And it's taken us many years to create that. So when we talk about diversification and talk about looking for new markets, I want you to keep that in mind. You don't turn on a 2 million ton market overnight. Mm-hmm. If those markets existed, they would already be there. So it's going to take time for us to develop them. And that just kind of speaks to the importance of that market for us and getting back to business, to having that 100% tariff removed so that we can, continue to work with our customers there. And on that point, I think it's also important to highlight that, and the Americans know this well, when you're shut out of a market for a period of time because of trade and tariff wars, there's no guarantee that you'll go back and occupy the pole position. You will not necessarily be the preferred supplier again. We used to own that market. We owned over 90% of that market in China. Well, there's new competition. There's peas coming out of Russia, out of Ukraine, out of other countries within that Black Sea region, and even Argentina, believe it or not. And as our customers become accustomed to working with quality from other origins, they will learn how to create a pea protein isolate that their customers prefer as much as they prefer Canadian product. We're not there yet, thankfully. Canadian peas are still recognized as the ingredient in that market. But you have to understand that this will happen. Right. If they're forced to accommodate variability and to adjust and to utilize ingredients from other sources, they will figure out how to do it. And then it's going to be very difficult to get back in and again, be the dominant supplier to that market. So time is of the essence, I guess, is our point. It's the point that we've been hammering Ottawa on. We understand these things are complicated. We understand the interplay between Canada and the US and Canada and China. But, what we've heard from this government is good. They're prepared to segment. They're prepared to strategically compartmentalize issues. They're prepared to recognize the importance of economic partnerships and relationships that we've established in the effort to find solutions to these problems. And so, can't happen soon enough for us. We need to get back into China.
All right. We're going to leave it there for just a moment. I did want to point out, I spoke with Greg for close to 20, 30 minutes. And he's just got some fantastic background and experience with what exactly is happening with pulses, with India, with China, and that whole dynamic. And if you head on over to RealAgriculture.com, you can listen to the entire interview and get some perspective that I couldn't include in today's show. So head on over there. Listen to the whole thing. And if you've got feedback, of course, you can drop us a line, 1-855-776-6147. And a reminder, you can now text that number. You don't have to call and leave a message. So there you go. I know for me, I much prefer texting to phone calls, at least to set up a phone call. So yeah, drop us a text. Okay, we'll be back with more of RealAg on the weekend right after this.
RiseAbsorb is redefining what growers expect from phosphate fertilizer. Backed by data and built for performance, RiseAbsorb helps reduce phosphorus losses, improve uptake, and boost ROI without increasing input costs. Join the next wave of growers switching to the next generation of phosphorus fertilizers by visiting phossolutions.com.
RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lyndsey Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada.
The following is a paid promotion by MMP. I'm Lyndsey Smith with RealAg on the Weekend and Real Agriculture. Joining me now, it's Eric Olson with MMP. Eric, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing, Lyndsey?
I'm doing well. This time of year does make me think about reflecting on sort of the year that was, the production season that was. And it does feel like we're starting to maybe get into a bit more of that planning season and that looking forward season. And so that's where we want to start today. From your perspective, what's driving farm business decisions heading into 2026?
Well, it really depends on what kind of operation you're running. I'm from Manitoba, so it's our cattle operations, our cow-calf. They're doing, we're lights out having a great year. I do lots of work in the hog business. Our hog sector is doing really well. Poultry and dairy is doing well. So we see the livestock sector doing really well. Where we really see some headwinds and changes coming forward is on the grain side. When we start forecasting for 26, we're looking at input costs are up 15%. Pricing is down. The big thing that we see from our standpoint is some of the fixed costs or fundamental costs have shifted up over the last 5 years. We calculate labor, power, and machinery, which is the cost of running all the machines on the farm. And we look back 5 years and they were around $150 an acre from our benchmark numbers in Manitoba. They're closer to $210 and $220 an acre now with that shift in the cost of machinery. Same thing with labor, land building and finance. We look at the finance side. It hasn't gone up as much because we'll talk about a little bit later. Farmers are pretty good business people. But it has all shifted up. And we're looking at gross margins that are about the same in 2026 as they were in 2019. So I think for the first time in a long time, we're going to see a little bit of pain on the farms, and we're going to see some producers are going to have to manage their way through some losses.
Which, being forewarned, I guess, gives us some time to potentially adapt. And this isn't, of course, entirely a surprise. We've sort of been talking about what the coming year or years might look like. But how are farmers adapting?
The first thing that when we work with lots of our clients, what we're seeing is this is a generation of farmers out there, the younger generation. And I know I'm not the younger generation anymore. I'm not sure when that happened, but they haven't experienced this before. So a lot of them are running right now. And we see some different behaviors, and it's like change management. We have clients that are denying it. There's, farmers by their nature have to be optimistic. They go in every spring hoping for a big crop. So the optimism is a great deal, but the problem with it right now is even if you have a good crop right now, you still might not be able to cover all your costs. So what we see in terms of that shift from our clients is it's really get down to business basics and looking at, what can we do different, or what can we do to manage or maximize our cash flow? Because we're going to be shifting from, hey, how do we make a whole bunch of profit to how do we maximize or retain cash so we can get through that year for the next year. And that's the optimism in agriculture is let's get through this year so we can get to the next year. And that might be 2026.
So then in my mind, that does, I think, mean a shift in how you plan and how you manage for that risk. What are you seeing in what's changing in how producers approach planning for the season and trying to manage risk?
We look at the risk management piece of this, and I talk on this a lot to farm groups and different presentations, is the real key is writing it down and starting to look at doing a budget. If you're going to go into this without understanding your numbers, you can't manage it. And farms are big, sophisticated businesses. There's always this underpinning with farmers is like, we're just, the hard farmer, we're working hard. And that's true, but the businesses have shifted. They're large, they're sophisticated. And looking at doing budgeting and planning is hugely important now, because some clients don't want to do it because they know it's not going to look great. But once you get the plan done, you can start to go to work on making changes and executing on what is it going to look like next year? What do I have to do to make those changes? Some of the discussion that we've had with clients around this is really around, your costs on your equipment costs are too high. Well, those aren't easy to change in a year. So that means we got to manage through that year. We got to communicate with our banks. We got to communicate with all our suppliers. We got to work our way through that process to get to the next year, because any of those, the way it works in agriculture is the cost of that machinery is creeped up on us. You can't just change it in a day. And having advisors work with you that can say, hey, look, what can we do in the next few years to manage that, and have tools to help you look at that. And really what I see, the other part is helping clients execute on that plan.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned then sort of the role of having trusted advisors, of having, the professionals on your side that deal in farm management every day, that maybe aren't scared of what the budget looks like. So what is the role then for advisors like yourself and at MMP? How does that fit into this puzzle of planning and risk management looking ahead?
So I've spent a career at MMP being a farm management consulting and working with clients on all these issues. And one of my clients that I've worked with since I started here, I have a client I've worked with for 27 years. And when I started working with them, they said it was lonely. One of their comments is the business is lonely. I can talk to my neighbors about what fertilizer to use. I can collaborate with them on all those great things, but I can't really talk about my business, because ultimately it goes, my neighbor and I are going to end up having a bidding war on the next piece of land. And I don't really want to tell them where I'm at. So one of the comments, it's really lonely. And around that side is to have a sounding board. And a lot of our work, we help with budgets and give ideas, but it's a sounding board and to bring in external information. Farmers don't share their fixed costs with each other.
That's right. So
through our benchmarking we do at M&P, we can sit down with a client and say, hey, look, your labor power machinery is really $10, $15 an acre higher. What are we going to do about that over the next 5 years? And then come up with a plan. And the other piece with us is they know we're on their side, right? We are absolutely client oriented. So we work really closely with them to be successful. And a lot of times I tell them is, let's come up with a plan. Let's look at it and then let's execute. But the other piece is, after you do a plan, let's not just take the plan and put it up on the shelf and look at it next year and go, well, that didn't work out well. We want to come back out, meet with them quarterly, monthly to say, so what are we doing different next month? How can we execute on that? Because what happens on the farm is they get into the business and they get into the fight. And producers are great. Farmers are great, getting things done, dealing with issues. They got issues flying at them every day. But sometimes we pull them out of the issues and in the fight and get them to look and work on their business. And that's really what we're doing with our trusted advisor stuff that we do at M&P. Whether it's your GP or whether it's your farm management consultant, is you can trust that we have your best interests at heart and we want you to be successful.
I really appreciate the point about benchmarking, because it is one of those things that money is personal, numbers are personal. And so benchmarking is a great way to know where you stack up without having anyone has to know any personal information, anything like that. You just need to know, is that one of the numbers that I could improve? Eric, we're out of time, but we do want to, of course, send everybody to MMP. Where can they go if they want to know more, if they want to get in touch? Where can they go for more information?
Well, they can go to our website, mmp.ca, look up farm management. They'll see my smiling face, or they can approach someone locally. We have offices right across Canada and really hope we can help clients out.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here on RealAg on the Weekend, and we'll be back with more right after this.
Check out the Soil Active herbicides Fierce EZ, Volterra EZ, and Aster from New Farm. Spray this fall and get ahead of hard-to-kill weeds with up to 8 weeks of extended weed control next spring. Use ahead of cereals, pulses, and soybeans. Learn more at newfarm.ca.
I'm Lyndsey Smith, host of The Agronomist, and I want to thank you for tuning in for over 200 episodes of our beloved little program. Join me Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for our live and interactive agronomy Q&A. Each week, our guest panel will handle some of your toughest agronomic questions live, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, X, and RealAgriculture.com. Tune in Monday nights or go to RealAgriculture.com/agronomist and sign up for our email notifications and don't miss an episode.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is a video series that showcases the latest in canola research and production agronomy. Learn from some of the best at your own pace through quick and timely producer-focused videos available on our YouTube channel. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is the quickest way to keep up to date on all the latest in canola production. Boost your canola IQ with the Canola School, brought to you by BASF, and visit canolaschool.com.
Welcome back to Real Ag on the Weekend. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith, and joining me now, it's the newly minted chair of Agriculture in the Classroom Canada, Darcy Pawlik. Darcy, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Lyndsey. Thanks for having me.
So congratulations on being named chair.
Thank you. It's an honor, truly.
Okay. Now, for those who maybe don't know, though, and everyone should, but let's face it, maybe people don't know who Agriculture in the Classroom Canada actually is, or what it is, or who it is. So catch us up to speed. What is this organization? And then we'll take it from there on what's new and what's changed.
I think that sounds great. And one thing to maybe add to that is Agriculture in the Classroom Canada is really an extension of all of the different provinces. So Agriculture in the Classroom Saskatchewan, very near and dear to my heart. So we act as a body that's been formed that comes over really about empowerment, any ability to kind of help what the provinces do, which is to teach students, help teachers teach students about food and agriculture, where it comes from, and do whatever we can to help build a new society of young people that have more food literacy in order to make decisions for their daily lives.
So Ag in the Classroom Canada, of course, been around a little while. We got news this week, though, of this new board of directors that's been named, and it's a bit of a different approach to the board. So catch us up on what has happened, what has changed over the last little bit.
You know, every organization goes through different types of evolution to try to figure out what that best structure, the best practice is going to be that's going to help empower their organizations to do a great job. And I think provincially, the different boards that have been there have done just a phenomenal job. And so in amongst all of the different executive directors across the 10 provinces, they've been getting together and figuring that they do need this national body to help with everything from advocacy and programming and systems and things like that. And sometimes it takes a little bit to get there. So there has been a bit of an evolution, tried out some different systems, some different people. And the nice part, I think, is where we've come to is we've now got just a truly phenomenal executive director in Denise Schmidt. The EDs of the provinces selected her as the person to take the organization into the future. And then collectively, they put in place this newly minted board, as you say, to try and really take from all the different facets of industry and really help to continue that success that they've had and experienced to date.
And looking at the list, it's a lots of familiar names on there, but there's also regional representation, which I think is really neat. So we've got, someone from PEI, we've got BC and New Brunswick, the Prairies, of course, well represented with yourself and also the canola growers as well. Was that important that there be, maybe not exactly one person from each, but that there be regional representation for this board?
Yeah, Lyndsey, you really kind of nail something that's important to Ag in the Classroom across the provinces and nationally. And really that diversity matters. And it's not just regional diversity, but we've got skill set diversity where you've got past ag ministers from PC. We've got people that are in the education system, both at higher levels as well as within government. We've got one of the best communicators literally in Canada. And so, when you can kind of stack all that together and have a good representation from all the different provinces, because let's face it, agriculture is absolutely different between the prairie provinces to British Columbia, Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes. And so bringing that all together It's actually been quite rewarding, even as a board member, I have to admit, just being able to be present with all those folks and having the opportunity to try to build something really special with that diversity. So it's great question.
And so looking forward then, certainly, putting together this new board of directors, really sort of opening up the next stage of what Ag in the Classroom Canada plans to do. What can we look forward to sort of seeing as far as, programming, or what teachers may be able to access, or how people can even get involved?
Yeah, fantastic questions, and thanks for that. So the provinces are going to remain the heart and soul of delivering the programs that have become a mainstay, and their delivery is truly world class. And so it really is about the national team's ability then to empower that excellence, let them continue to do that, and ensure that best practices are shared amongst the different provinces. And we look at, different systems that can allow for some efficiencies, because the reality of the different provinces is that demand has outstripped supply. They are all running all out. And if anybody's had the opportunity to meet the executive directors from the different provinces, we all know that their passion shines through day and night. They put tireless hours into it. So it actually is really compelling for that national group then to say, okay, what can we do to continue to further that and help that? So whether it's going to be shared services, and this is where, to the second part of your question around where can you get involved, it's not just about volunteering in the classrooms. If you feel like, hey, I'm better behind a computer screen, I'm great at HR maybe, I have some IT expertise that I'd like to contribute, communications systems, you name it. We're certainly very keen to hear from you. We would love to take a look at how that can all be integrated. And so there's just a lot of different ways that you can volunteer. So by all means, continue with the provinces and the classrooms. But if you're looking for something different and you have a different skill set to contribute, we're absolutely happy to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. All right. And there are just so many of us within agriculture, I'm sure, that maybe we don't have the time to serve on the board, but we might have, as you mentioned, maybe some other skills or time at different parts of year where we may want to volunteer some of our time. I know personally, from my own province, we've done some Ag in the Classroom stuff, and it always goes over incredibly well. It's so wonderful to see kids and their curiosity and learning about an industry that we're so passionate about. It is truly rewarding. And so wonderful to see you taking the helm. Thank you so much for joining me here on the show. Really appreciate it, Darcy. And where can people go if they're curious about Ag in the Classroom Canada or any of their provincial orgs? Where can you direct them to go for more information?
The easiest way to go is Google Agriculture in the Classroom. It'll come up with Canada as well as a number of the different provincial entities, and through the Canadian portal, you can reach all the different provincial entities as well. More than happy to hear from them. Check out the great programs, make sure that you kind of advocate to your classroom teachers. There's lots of digital tools. There's everything from hands-on learning, you kind of name it. And it's an experience that's second to none. So thanks again for having us. We're really, truly pleased to be able to share this with everyone else. And we're looking forward to kind of growing it together with them.
All right. Thanks so much, Darcy. Thanks so much for joining me on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Well, that does it for another episode of Real Ag on the Weekend. Thank you so much for making this show and all of Real Agriculture a part of your weekend. We really do appreciate it. As always, you can get in touch. You can actually text our feedback line, 1-855-776-6147. You can call it, of course, as well and leave us a message, or you can send me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. Head on over to realagriculture.com at any time. You can read all the stories, watch our videos, download podcasts, all from that site if you'd like. And of course, you can always get in touch. Let us know what you thought of the show, if you've got any questions or feedback, or if you've got any story ideas or interviews you'd like to hear on the show. We really do appreciate it. As always, follow us across social media as well. We're on Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, YouTube. Follow along. Never miss anything from Real Agriculture. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you again for joining us here on Real Ag on the Weekend. Cheers, everybody.